Okay. I get started in just a second. Okay. So I'm gonna start out with the Balcon presentation with some basic communication stuff first. And just overall team stuff that I've been noticing. Some stuff has to be said about it and fixed a little bit. The first thing is don't be afraid to talk to each other, please. Like, don't get into the zone where you despise how um, your teammates play, and then you don't say anything about it. That's really, really bad. That's about the worst thing you can do. And well, I think that overall, just have conversations with your team members about problems and things, but do not do it mid map, which is the next point. Please do not try and like say, "Oh, we should have done this, we should have done that." Mid, it's a habit that many players have, many teams have in general. They're like, "It's a scrim, we can do it." Then, if you build that habit in a scrim, you're gonna do the same exact thing in a can't do that. How you practice. So a lot of the time, you almost play a scrim. Sure, there's a bit of a difference. Different things, risks, you try things, but that's different than messing up your comms flow just for the sake of trying to fix things. It's just it's important to keep that in mind. Don't tell people how to use the ultimate thing. Just pushing mid. It can be frustrating because people use them incorrectly. Address it during the map. Then you aren't doing your job, and you should be coaching yourself at that point because you aren't making calls. You aren't clearly aren't ult tracking, and you're not making a plan for them. Right? You're wasting valuable time. And essentially, for any match and scrim, you do not want to be talking about. Don't be self-deprecating. This is something that a lot of players in general. I've done it myself. It's bad. It's good to be self-reflective, but that is different than being actively um, deprecating towards like just have zero confidence. I have had in players who have had so little like they have zero ego to the point where it's like get an ego. So have confidence in your own ability. I'd say is quite important. Like to be self-reflective and to improve and say, "Oh, I could have done that better," is one thing. To say that like I'm awful, I'm wrong, and to kind of spell that energy onto your team, that's not the best possible. Just something to keep in mind, everybody, and just in general, don't become frustrated when you approach with a challenge. This is a big one. When you're met with a hard team, your thought should not be, "This is hard and I want to die because I can't do anything and I don't want to play anymore." Um, the best thing you can do is treat it like, okay, I don't know how to deal with this, but I'm going to test some things out. I'm going to change how I play the next fight and try and figure out what I can do because I'm playing as good players, right? That's the best possible mind to have. Have energy in general. Energy is extremely important, and the ability for you to give your team energy, like it only takes one person. You can carry a match by being by having energy. not exactly being positive, like saying, "Oh, we did good." Next, keep energy flowing because that will keep everyone's minds on track. Zone out, down, constantly ult tracking, fight planning. To have that energy, just is like you've probably felt it at all. Everybody has. There's that game, that match, right? Everybody is invested, and the best possible scenario, and it's just better. It feels better. It feels good, even when the match is difficult, frustrating. When you have energy, it becomes much easier. Um, Trust your teammates is the final one. This one is probably the most important and the hardest to do. Trusting your teammates and frustrating at times because when you put your trust in them, sometimes pretty much this should work. But when you trust your own team, and you get to a point where your team knows what they're doing and you have full confidence in what they're saying, like they want to do, if they like say, if you make a plan and they're like, wait, I have my ult, I can do this, don't shut them down, because important factor to consider is perspective, right? And I talked to Mech about this last night and just told him about this. Perspective is way more, it's surprising, right? A lot of people tunnel vision a role, and it gives you a okay, my mic's cutting in and out. I'm probably too far away from it. I'll just bring it closer. Yeah. So people tunnel vision with their role, right? And what happens with that is they don't consider every option in a fight, and that can be very that it's hard to explain. It's hard to explain. Either way, when your teammate brings up an idea, right? Let's try this. Follow it. If you think it's stupid, still do it, because if it's stupid, you can make fun of them later in a nice way, and that's very important, in a nice way. That's why you talk to your teammates afterwards, not during. Don't do it during. Afterwards, right? So you have to put trust into your teammates. If it goes wrong, you can fix it afterwards. But if there's no trust, you're not going to do anything together anyways, and you may as well just play comp, right? Like get a bunch of ranked players, put them in a match, and they'll do just good as you. Because if you don't trust what your teammates see, right? Like perspective, how I saw the change in perspective, I went from main tank to playing. I played main support for 3 scrims straight, the master's level. It is incredibly surprising what you see as a main support that you don't exactly see as a main tank, and the information that the main tank gets that the main support doesn't have whatsoever and is oblivious to. It's really interesting, honestly. And same thing, like main tank to DPS. The DPS a lot of the time have a very, very different perspective from like the main tank, and sometimes they maybe the DPS want to go for a play that the main tank is sure about, when the main tank can't really see everything when the DPS are like back there and or a hack or something. That putting blind faith in your team will, in the long run, benefit you. Even in the short run, in scrims, it doesn't go well. That just means you have to fix the problem and look at the fight and like just figure it out, right? Okay. So ult tracking and planning, gonna go over this again as well. Ult tracking works best if initiated by a set player or players. I know I've had you guys really just working together to ult track and just figure it out. And I see Water initiates a lot, which is good. Initiation, you only have to really say 1 or 2 ults that they have, and then after that, your team will jump in. But that's the best way you can do it. If you have one person track all 6 ults, in theory, I mean, some people can do it. If any of you are Crimzo, have fun with it. But if you aren't Crimzo, things get very difficult very, very fast when you're trying to track 6 ults. Especially things like Tracer Pulse, where it's like, if you're the main tank or like an off tank or something. You weren't keeping track of the tracer for a fight or something. Like the tracer, she was doing her own thing, farming your main tank or something, like healing. Um, you wouldn't know she would have bomb, right? And things like that become very. That's where the DPS can kind of come in and say, "Hey, that tracer." Think about your ult, and then the entire team can assist in planning. And I know I spelled this wrong. We don't talk about that, but the entire team can assist in planning a fight, and there should be no set planner. This is important, and this is what I was talking about with perspective too, with how different people can see different things, and therefore a plan can be made. People can put their opinions in, dependent on what they have. Think about your ult in particular, right? And I stress this a lot, but if you have Nano, if you have Rally, if you have EMP, if you're gonna hold it, if you don't want to use it that fight, you still need to say that. If you go the entire fight planning phase with and you have your ult and you just say nothing about what you're going to do with it, that's bad automatically, right? Like the least you can say is I'm going to use my Valk mid fight after we use our bomb or whatever. I don't know what the plan would be there, but either way, you have to think about your ult. You have to think for yourself again, and then you trust your teammates with what they want to do with their ult, and you follow up on it. But this is, I cannot stress how important this is, and it's easy. It's really easy. All you have to do is say what you want to do with your ult before a fight starts. Even if you think it's wrong, even if you're not sure what to do, still say something. Maybe if you're not sure, you're like, okay, I'm just going to use my bomb for remake. You don't have to use it aggressively. You can say, I'm going to use Brig Rally defensively. They push into us. It's fine. Like, you don't have to make something advanced. Say nothing. Your team has no idea what you're going to do. And think about what you want to do in general. What's your goal? What are you looking for? Right? As a tracer, maybe you can say, I want to look for their... maybe as a Sombra, you would say, I'm looking for hack on BAP. And if you let your team know that, then maybe Ball can slam BAP, get a hack, Tracer assassinates with you, right? You can set up something like that. So overall, when it comes to fight planning, when it comes to you thinking about what you want to do and what you want to contribute to planning a fight, you want to think about your ult and what you want to do with your abilities in general, right? And this really goes for DPS and tanks. I mean, support, short. I mean, rally, I think you can kind of... Rally's good for that as well. Like, rally's important for ult-wise. But for the most part with Brig, your kit, like, you don't have anything massive there. And what you want to do, I mean, you protect your Zen or your Ana or whatever you're playing. And usually as Ana, you don't plan to get a nade. You're going to look for it, obviously. Sometimes you can. Say you want to go for, like, a flank nade or a close nade, something like that. But... for the most part, it's really the DPS. In particular, I want talking a good bit, especially Goose. A little bit more. I think Andrew's doing a pretty good job. His communication, fish that works. But yeah, mech as well. You can communicate who you're going to isolate with your primal, so that your team can pick up. Bit, also communicate what you want. So, yeah, that's kind of the idea with that, right? So, ball compositions, there are a ton. And you can tell which one of these I got off of my actual computer and which ones I got off my Chromebook while I was making this presentation during study hall. Yeah, this is beautiful quality, isn't it? Okay, so the first comp you see here, and I got a bunch of these from Philadelphia because I was watching their matches earlier today. The first in kind of base composition is the Sombra Tracer, Ball, D.Va, Zen Brig. Sombra Tracer is just kind of a staple of the meta currently. It works pretty well with compositions in general. Works with the Monkey, works with the Ball. So in this comp, of course, has a D.Va as well. I'll get into Zarya in a little bit, and I'll tell you why I have you playing Zarya. But here you can see another type of composition. This has the Sig and the Ashe, but a lot of the time you actually want the Diva with the Ashe, and that's because the Diva does a better job of peeling, right? So your Diva can kind of just bodyguard your Ashe a little better and allows your Ashe to live. It's really map dependent, Sigma, a lot of the time. You've got the Hanzo Tracer, which is a bit of a new development, but it's been a while. It's been around for a while in KR, but it's interesting. It's interesting. You've got Echo Tracer. Echo Tracer's been here for a while. It's pretty standard as well. You've got an honorable mention, I suppose. Dallas Fuel running the Ball Rush. It's very, very potent. You guys have had more practice on the Monkey version, but theoretically the Ball version's better in the perfect scenario. So that technically is still a Ball composition. You've got this is technically a Chengdu composite. Usually Chengdu play it, but here you can see Shanghai playing it with the Pharah and the Sombra. This composition basically means, hey, you have a good Sombra and you have a good Pharah, so you're going to play this now. It plays slower, it plays for opportunities, but it plays a lot for the Pharah. You've got Fleta on Pharah, or you've got, I think, Chengdu play it, and they have Jin Pharah. It's really dependent on your Pharah player, right? And then you've got this final version, which honestly is underrated, in my opinion. And this composition is the Tracer, Soldier, Ball, Diva, and Brig. So you got the Tracer, Soldier, DPS line. And the Soldier's really, really good at taking angles, and a little bit better at living than Ashe is. Ashe can kind of get singled out a little bit better. Soldier as well, you can put a Mercy. I know here Skewed is on Brig, of course, but they could probably have put Moth in and just put Moth on Birdring's ass, and that would have worked pretty well as well. Soldier is a little bit better now, but it also, again, I feel like this would be a situation where you'd play the Ashe if you're better at Ashe. You'd play the Hanzo if you're better at Hanzo. You play the Soldier if you're better at Soldier. You play Pharah Sombra if you're better at Pharah and Sombra. You play the Tracer Sombra if you're better at Tracer and Sombra, right? Like that's the general idea. None of these, they are map specific. It is matchup specific. But when it comes down to it, all of them are good, right? They play a little differently, but they're all ball comp in their own fashion. So to a little bit on communication with ball comp in general. Ball, you need to communicate when you want to and are slamming. Those are two different calls, and you need to make them. You need to call, okay, I'm looking for slam, and if you can say who you're looking to slam, then that allows your Sombra and your Tracer to get set up better. So the more detailed the call, the better. And then when you are slamming is important as well, because obviously that are slamming them. Call out displacement. So if you displace them, like you roll through, they're in open space, you can call that, or you knock them off a high ground or something. And you need to talk to your Tracer, and even your Sombra too, right? Talking to your Tracer is important because as the Ball, Tracer, Sombra, almost kind of that group. The Sombra can play with the core a little bit, but a lot of the time the Sombra's playing with the Tracer Ball. If you don't work together and you don't path to get together, you won't be successful, right? The Ball Tracer combo is what makes Ball comp work. There's a reason why you run Tracer in almost every single Ball comp. And that's just because Tracer's so good at following up on Ball. And Ball is pretty good at following up on Tracer's damage, right? Both of them have pretty much the fastest pace combined in the game. Sombra added on to that, works very well. So you need to constantly be talking to your Tracer, under what Tracer wants to do, and sometimes if you're looking, okay, I'm looking at this person, or we should go this way, you have to say, like, okay, let's go this way with your Tracer. If you split with how you want to get behind them, that can be bad as well, because if they catch you out, like their Ball Tracer singles out one of you, like maybe on Hanamura, your Tracer goes right side, your Ball goes left side. If their Ball Tracer just goes right side and kills your Ball, then they just diffed you, right? So keeping your Ball Tracer together is important. And the final thing is you need to communicate to your Zarya. and also have a general understanding of if your Zarya has secondary and if you can slam or help build charge for your Zarya. And I'll talk a little bit more about the Zarya and the charge later. Off tank, talk to your Zen, because a lot of the time you want to be setting up your Zen in a spot where they can get good angles. So if your Zen wants to take an aggressive angle, then you need to like have that communication go. And just you're kind of on your Zen, and your Zen is on you. So you have to work as it to get the best possible angle. And usually, when you aren't in the mid fight, your Zen is looking for an angle or something like that. So your Zen should be like kind of taking charge, and you just talk to your Zen about what they want to do. Shadow calling your Zen. So your Zen is shot calling, right? You need to shadow call what your Zen's calling and go on it, right? And you need to also call when you're going aggressive because, say, if you're in Zarya, you're high charge, I want to go now, you need to call it. If you're in Sigma, you want to push them, you call that as well because that tells your Zen, okay, I need to go with my off tank now because as then you can trail kind of behind your off tank, but you generally want to stay with them, right? It's different than Ana Brig, like a monkey comp, because your Ana wants to stay back, right? But a Zen, you want to be taking more aggressive angles and playing off tank when you're off tank, like the mid fights. Tracer, you need to talk to the ball about what you want to do, and that's very important. If you want to look for a pulse, you can say, okay, ball, can you PD them? And I'll just look for a pulse. They're all in the air. They're very easy to pulse. And also, you need to listen to your Zen and communicate with them. If you need orb, that communication in general, again, pretty important. And listen to your Zen for discords because you will melt things that are Discord Tracer. So having that synergy with your Zen is pretty important. Sombra, call out hacks. I know Andrew been doing a pretty good job of that so far. Like there's honestly been no issues, and you can communicate with Ball and Tracer, and you can also scout. You don't really have much more you need to do. You can shadow call, of course, what your Zen is on and what you're on with them. But overall, you've been doing a pretty good job of cover, at least. So I don't think that's a problem area. Brig, you want to be focusing on track. Flankers, listen to your Zen and your off tank. Because what they want to do will change where you're at. And a lot of the time, you're on your off tank's hip. Especially if you're on Zarya. You and Zarya need to be a singular entity. You basically should play like you're one person playing both heroes. And you just play as a singular, like, hive mind. Because if you play with your Zarya, your Zarya use bubble, and then build your Zarya, fucks out, or like does more damage. And then Zarya can bubble you. You can almost play. You can play like you're Ryan Zarya, only you're Brig, not Ryan. So keep that in mind. Then communicate discords and target. Basically, your target calling. And talk to your off tank about what you want to do. Again, I went over this from the off tank perspective, but you need to talk to your off tank what angle you want to take, how aggressive you want to be. Very, very important. And then talking to your Tracer as well. If your Tracer's out of LOS, you can't orb her. Tell her. It's the same idea as Brig with packs. A Zen, you just want to talk to your Tracer and let them know. And also, you can listen for hacks and you call them and Discord them. That's very important. Okay. Why do I have you guys on Ball Zarya? So Ball Zarya is a Korean composition, and it's been played most in Korean contenders. It originated back when Ball Comp was initially meta, right after the Sig Hog meta, when Ball started to gain prevalence. Ball Zarya kind of became a thing, and right after that, like right after Ball, like kind of fell out for a second because everyone's like, wait, maybe double bubble's the thing now, but it turned out Ball Comp was just better and people weren't enough at it yet. But Ball Zarya by no means is anywhere near an extinct comp. You don't see it very often. You haven't seen it in Overwatch League, the playoffs. Trust me, it's good. It's not the best possible comp, but considering it plays for hero pools, it being good Zarya, it's perfectly fine. In fact, I would one of the first things you see here, Zarya compensates for relatively low DPS output, although I will say your Sombra like kills everything sometimes. It's kind of crazy. Well, Zarya is easy to learn. It's very, very, very forgiving. It allows Ball to be more aggressive and engage with less consequences. Because you can literally feed and just PD into them and bubble it and gain charge off it. Right? You, as the ball player, as long as you're communicating properly with your Zarya, can do so much more and worry way less about stuns and things. You still have to worry about it. You still have to be careful. But in general, it is easier for the ball player, right? The peel is pretty much straightforward. You don't really have to make the you don't have to play chess as D.Va like you would with D.Va. It's very, very basic. You have a secondary bubble. You have to use them. It's up to you. Use personal bubble to hold or take space. Secondary bubble to do kind of the same thing or build charge and so on. It is still an effective counterpart to other ball comps. There are a few. I would say the Sombra Pharah ball comp would kind of shit on Zarya ball. If you run across it, I have a solution to that. Don't worry. But against like standard brawl comp, like a ball D.Va, Sombra Tracer, you're fine. You'll still be fine. And it's also effective against double bubble, and it excels against brawl. It's basically a brawl counter. Not as good as Pharah Sombra against brawl, but it's still very effective. Right? And the reason for that is because, first of all, ball composition already does pretty well against Reinhardt. Because the entire idea is that ball can just stop brawl in their tracks by PDing Lucy. Rolling through and like just making their speed useless, right? And drawing on the fight longer than they wanted. Second, for Brawl to do anything, they have to be in Zarya's range. Zarya's range is probably the weakest part of this comp, like closing that distance. They do it for you. That's how easy it is, right? And on top of that, you have a Sombra, you have a Tracer, you're constantly harassing their backline, they're forced around. Hacks are pretty easy to get off. Your ball is able to slam basically for free because you have bubble, right? You can just roll through. You don't have to worry about anything. Like crease stun, nothing. You have a bubble, right? And then when they actually reach you, you don't have to switch Mercy. You can still run break because you can just play Reinhardt, bubble your break, and just brawl with them. Because by the time they get to you, as long as you use your CDs correctly, you PD them, they make it you make it absolute hell for them to get to you. By the time they get to you, your brig is going to be just fine with. So that's kind of the idea. Like it just so if you guys come across any brawl one trick teams and just against them, as long as you play correctly, it's just and then it plays to the hero pools, as I said before. It works pretty much well for everybody. Sombra player, good Tracer player, good Zarya player. Weaknesses of Ball Zarya. There are weaknesses of it, and there's reasons why D.Va's played over Zarya. Zarya just kind of performs poorly against hit scan heavy conditions. For example, the Route 66 attack while struggled. They were playing Kree Soldier, then Bap, Orisa Sig. And I can look back on this, make this. Look back on this. Second. Okay. Sorry about the pause. Look, leave this. Okay. Yep. Okay. So what they're playing now is like comedically probably the biggest counter comp to Paul Zarya in existence. And you guys still actually managed to take the first point. And that's impressive on its own. Um, so against a double shield, you have a few options, right? Option number one is to say, okay, they're on double shield. We can honestly stay to ball if we want to. And we can just go rush. We can go monkey or ball, either one. Just switch rush. Rush counters double shield really hard, especially something like this. They have nothing to stop you. There's nothing that's stopping your momentum, right? So you can just say, fuck it, we're rush. And just path down here under gas station, stabilize, and then keep going around. That's the idea, right? Like that's what you want. Just want to. You have another option. So, got rush. Your second option is to switch the Zarya to D.Va. Switch your Brig, Mercy. And you have the option, probably just one. You want to switch your Sombra, Ashe. Technically, you can do it to Echo. But you basically want to do it to Ashe, right? It plays to hero better as well, just for Ashe, so I would recommend here Ashe Tracer. See, then, right? And that will perform way better against this. Okay. So that's kind of the idea. That's how you deal with something like this. And bring up this again. It can perform well against double shield. As long if you're able to get close. This part it performs pretty poorly. Grav can be eaten. That's just a fact of where Zarya is the downfall against a D.Va. In this case, they didn't have a D.Va though, but still, getting close is hard enough. And Zarya is an easy dive target. This is pretty important because D.Va has boosters and DM. Zarya has one personal bubble, which has like a 5 or 6 second cooldown. You have a 5 or 6 second cooldown to living. D.Va has a 3 second on boosters, and technically, really only like 1.5 seconds to get a little bit of DM. Right? Like, it takes D.Va to get one of her living resources in 5 to 6 seconds. And then she can get 2 in like the same amount of time. I think the boosters is actually 4 seconds. But it's around there. Either way, living on D.Va is easier. So it's something you have to keep in mind. Yeah. D.Va versus Sigma versus Zarya. D.Va is just better appealing, while shutting down poke compositions and heroes. Again, yeah, I know I went over that a second ago, but D.Va can work better with Ashe as well because you bodyguard your Ashe, and if you're having trouble with peel, like you're dying too much, that D.Va's just better at that. D.Va's better at living. Sigma is pretty well rounded. Like, he can do everything, but nothing very good. His peel is limited. Can be an easy dive target at times. Like in between, he's better against a brawl than D.Va is in a lot of cases, and on some maps he can be better. But for the most part, he's like a neutral. Never super bad. Like they're running like a Sombra Tracer ball comp. Bad. There's just everything is diving you. But for the most part, he's okay. He's mid tier, I guess. Zarya is interesting, right? Zarya is really, really good at brawling, but is weak after personal bubbles and is limited in range. So there are weaknesses to Zarya for sure. But it's very, very easy. It's ball comp with training wheels, kind of, but it still works really well. It must work well enough to be played in. Um, you play around your Zarya. Kind of talk about that. So first of all, you want to be playing to build your charge for mid fight, right? Because once your Zarya is high charge, you can do this for through ways. You can PD, so you can look for PD again, communicate with Zarya, looking for PD. You can actually bubble a hack, and that takes a little more communication. But if you do it, you can almost guarantee a hack if less isn't that. And you can actually bubble break as well. Get close in a brawl situation, you're right up in their face. Get plenty of charge of that, almost. Brig Zen should play around your Zarya. This isn't a question that. And yes, your Zarya is going to play aggressive, and you're going to play aggressive with your Zarya. So that means as Zen, you'll be taking really aggressive angles a lot of the time. And you're going to be playing around the pace of your Zarya sometimes. Just keep that in mind. And Zarya should be holding space aggressively when he has personal bubble or ample charge. Either one, right? Because if you have enough charge, they can't really run at you easily, and like you just burn them. They can. Or if you have bubble, personal bubble, you can just keep holding space, or you can take space with bubble, right? That's the idea. And you want to be playing corner to corner. You want to play this comp like your core, like a brawl, right? You're always holding this corner. You shouldn't be playing super far back, like Hollywood, for example. Got this high ground back here. Got like the stairs up here. You've got the first choke back here. You've got the back area here, the elevator. So, you play up in here. So this is something like I kind of saw, like your Zen playing here. You almost want to be holding like, right? Oh, I accidentally did all that, but that's fine. Either way, like if you've got these corners here, right? I'm just gonna draw all the. Right, you've got all this stuff. Right, you've got all this. This corner here, where the point is, you play that. You can play that aggressive. Yeah, sure. At the beginning, you can set up here and like take an angle, as then you can play aggressive and stuff. But when it comes down to it, when your Zarya is brawling, you should always be playing corner, stuff like that, right? Corner to corner, and then you can push the high ground as well. But overall, you're always playing like an aggressive and way almost, and as long as you're at a corner. And then what you can do, you can displace the opposing team towards your Zarya. That's a thing for ball. Zarya's big problem a lot of the time is closing the distance. Sometimes it's nice if you're on defense, they'll close the distance for you. But on attack, like towards your Zarya, same thing on defense, boop them around. Advantage because space. Keep that in mind because you get a lot of value out of Zarya. And then you can play. You just always want to play to brawl mid. Right? Especially with Zarya ball comp, you out brawl a diva brawl comp, right? If you can start brawling with their core with a high charge, right? So especially in the mid fight, you have your Zarya, maybe your Brig is behind, ends here, your ball tracer, Sombra are like back here, coming in. The enemy team is around here. In general, you should be trying to orbit around your Zarya as she moves in. As she moves in, you want to keep within that orbit, right? You want to stay in it. So as the ball tracer Sombra, you don't want to go too far from your Zarya. You don't want to play out of her range so that she cannot do anything. You want to orbit around your Zarya. If they push your Zarya, you boop them closer in, or you boop them away, you stop their momentum. There's so much you can do, but a lot of what you're doing all plays around this one character right? Double shield matchup. Double shield is natural counter to ball Zarya, types of double shield and how to counter them. I'm gonna have a video here, not a video, a bunch of compositions. Didn't have them. I didn't have a chance to grab the images. My bad. I actually forgot I didn't put them in. But anyways, if they, in general, again, the comps you can do. I've taught you guys rush, and if you've watched the playoffs recently, you've seen, like, San Francisco, they just force rush everywhere, like I told you guys to do in your tournament matches, right? Rush is good kind of everywhere still. Dallas ran their ball rush on a guy. It just works in general. So the first counter, the stupid double shield, is just play rush. And I taught you guys Tracer Genji as well. This works. It works super well, okay? Because it's frustrating to play Sombra into it. It can be frustrating to play Ashe into it. So just play Tracer and Genji. It'll work well for you. 2, just switch the comp, switch to an Ashe for C, and a D.Va. Right? This is your second option. Your third option is technically just a mirror. And if they're playing Orisa D.Va, right? So if they're running an Orisa D.Va, which is still an Orisa comp, you know what you do? I think the number one thing I would do is play Rush against that, right? Another thing you can do, though, and if you're playing Rush against Orisa D.Va, I think Ball Rush is better. Just because Monkey gets destroyed by a lot of the Orisa D.Va comps. But you can actually play. You don't exactly mirror them. Play Orisa Sig. Right? Now, what you can do as well, there's a special double shield composition, which is Orisa, Sig, Ashe, Genji, Bap, Brig, right? Okay, so this composition here is really good, okay? Especially against Orisa D.Va. I would consider it a direct counter to Orisa D.Va. To be fair, you guys have not had a lot of practice on Orisa comps, which is why I would recommend Rush. If you're struggling, if they're beating your Rush, you can play this comp. How does it play? It's simple. Your Orisa pulls. You have Genji Dash for Orisa pull. You have Ashe Dynamite for Orisa pull. Your Ashe and Genji can just say, hey, can you pull? And your Orisa pulls, right? Your Sig, since you have Sig Orisa, they only have Orisa, right? You have more shields. And you just win automatically, just by default, right? And then your break, with your Bat break, the reason you have a break is because you actually want to brawl with them. You have more shields than them. You just keep walking out them with more shields, and then you brawl with them. Not even kidding. With this Genji, this Ashe, the Ashe can kind of take an off angle, of course, while you're brawling. But your break, you want to get her close enough that she can actually brawl. You go in with your Orisa, you gold in their face, and you just beat them to death. That's the other counter, right? So I want to give you guys at least tools to beat the counter comp in case you run across it. I know I have you running ball maps, and you'll probably be running it on a few playoffs. Keep in mind those counters. Now, that's the entire presentation for now. I want to go into a few examples for Watch League in general. So here I have this up now. First one, Philadelphia Fusion example. May take a second. I can't have several instances here. Fusion versus, no, it was versus Oasis. Okay, so in the next two examples, I'm going to explain something very important about Volcom that differs from Monkey, right? I've already explained to you guys the concept of kill boxes and in general engagements, right? I feel as if from what I've taught you, from the Diva Winston kind of comps, you should probably understand that to a point where you can apply it to your ball comp, right? It's kind of the same idea, not too different. Yeah, I do think this is lagged, but that's fine. They'll get them across. I want to look at the final fight here. Okay. So, the most important part of ball comp is living. I'm not even kidding. So, with this matchup, right, you've got Spark, which are on, well, I guess Diva Bubble, basically. A very, very standard comp. And you've got Fusion, which is Ashe, Diva, very. Okay, and quite good. The Ashe gets Peel from the Diva, and the Ashe Oak, right? You don't have a Mercy with it, but that's mainly Somber Tracer. How the Monkey comp wants to approach this is they want to try and win as fast as possible against them, right? The longer this exists, this Ashe exists, Ball exists, Tracer exists, the harder it's going to be, because Monkey, he can get in and then he can get out, but he can't keep going. Ball can, right? And overall, this Ball, Tracer, Ashe is the potential for this comp. So as long as they survive and they live, then they'll be fine. So it's really up to Spark, who have the better initial engage, to try and win this as fast as they physically can. And you'll see this happen in this final fight, right? So right now, Fusion have control of the point. Here, both teams have a decent ult bank. And right now, you can see Fusion are just ceding space. They're just going the whole way back. Bam, nano engage. So immediately, you can see Spark are taking a very aggressive stance. You've got the rally coming out from Astro, and here you see Architect is already primed for a EMP. Bam, it happens. Bernard, the bomb. Spark are going all in initially in this fight. And there we go. You see Shockwave dies. What's important now is a few people lived. Mono is still alive right now. I think he will die. Got Hoppa, who's managing to live. Got Funny Astro. Got Carpe. Right. As long as Ball Tracer is alive, fight isn't lost. And you have a rallying break play around as well. This fight, you might think, well, damn, Spark just kind of won. Not really, Buckaroo, right? Because, sure, you killed 2, cool and all, but have fun killing everybody else after you had to basically use most of your resources in one engagement. And right now, since they just engaged and they just did everything, they can't really deal with the Funny Astro right now. Like, Funny Astro has a few seconds to live. So does Mono here, as long as he doesn't, like, die instantly. Yeah, he's gonna die, but that's fine. I see M1KA matches, and Funny Astro and Hoppa just kind of play together. Carpe feeds. Didn't have. Hoppa goes for touch. Okay. Hoppa touches. And now you can see Spark have no resources. This is not lost for Fusion at all. Got Ball coming back already. Diva, Hoppa's doing an excellent job here. Everybody's on him, and he's brought them further away, the furthest away possible from the front of the point. Bam, bomb. Hoppa's done his job. Touch happens from Mono. The Ball Tracer's back, the Zen trances. And right now, this is the kind of a situation where ball comp wins, right? They're one down right now, granted. But Spark have nothing. They're all over the place. They're not primed. Because once a monkey comp primes and goes, after that, they can't do anything anymore. They have to give it a second. They have to regroup, stabilize. Ball comp is so good because it doesn't really have to, right? These crazy mid-fight situations where it's like the opposing team is all over the place and you're still good. This is where you're really going to get your value as ball comp. So Benar loses Mac here. And you see Guxa still I don't know how to pronounce it. I don't watch APAC enough, so I wouldn't know. Tries to go in and just keep pressure going, but he can't. He's not ball. He just dies. He feeds. And now you've got the rest of Spark back in the back of the point here. Mono trying to live. Mono kind of feeds a little bit. Shy gets a pretty good pulse off. Is this lost? No, not at all. Funny Astro goes in, takes space. Carpe's still alive. As long as Carpe's alive, it's fine. And Spark just kind of don't touch. But hopefully that kind of demonstrated how important it is to just outlive the first engage, especially in a matchup against. Same thing with the brawl comp. You outlive their speed, and then you go into the match. The longer you live as ball comp, the better. There's another example, which is in past matches. The past. Give it a second to load up. Okay. And this is from... Yep, this is it. Okay. Chengdu versus LA. Now, this is from the Countdown Cup, right? There were bans. The Countdown Cup. Does that change anything? No, because this is basically what teams play anyways on this map. So, this is essentially a meta map. Like, there's nothing different from play. Like, Shanghai play the Sombra Tracer on this map with Ball. It's probably the best comp on this. Right? So, off the bat, I just want you to pay attention to how Muse plays. How different it is from a monkey, right? So immediately Muse is gonna come in, just kinda poke around, and just kind of chill. He's still chilling. He's gonna go to the backup point now. He's gonna kind of play around there, see if there's any opportunity back there. And the core, see right now they're getting set up. He's just gonna go for a slam back here. Doesn't really hit much. He's still playing on point with his team with his Sombra Tracer. You see the Tracer Ball are staying together right now. And the Ball isn't PDing the backline. He isn't feeding, going in. He doesn't have to. He's playing around his team because right now they have control over the point, and they just need to prevent people from getting on. So he's going to play around preventing that. Now he's going to contest Jinmu here, and Kevster's with him. See, very good coordination. Tries to use P to catch him, and now the Gladiators have control the point. Now, I think the most interesting thing about this fight is the fact that not once did Muse PD Punk or even not once did he even attempt to PD the core. He didn't have to. And that's important to understand with Ball. A lot of the time you're just kind of vibing and existing in Ball comp. Like you want them to run at you and they want you to run at them if you're in a mirror match like this. And you're just fighting for control of the point. It's not exactly like Monkey where you're going in to kill their backline. That's not what you're doing with this comp. Instead, you're fighting for control of this point. And if their backline's back here, and there's no clear opportunity, and like it's really risky, because a lot of the time it really is, especially because Sombra, Rig, Discord you. If there's no point, don't do it. Because there, gladiators, their core had kind of set up on the point, right? At that point, what is the best thing Muse can do? Play around that, orbit around that. He's not going to go further. He's not going to go past that. Just going to orbit around this general area here, right? This area. Because, and then if anybody enters, if anybody decides to go, which their core probably has to, that's when you make your move. That's when you PD. And in this case, the only people on the side of Chengdu who really did that were Li. And in that case, you could see that Muse, Murdering, Hefster, all on the same page about protecting it, just keeping control over this zone. That's the final kind of, I guess, interim. That's ball comp down to at least the basics, and hopefully that helped a little bit. Now I know here I kind of show how passive Muse in your ball Zarya comp. A lot of the time you will go for a slam on the backline just for the sake of building Zarya charge, but in cases where your Zarya doesn't have bubble or doing your thing in the neutral, super aggressive. Just keep that in mind. Keep in mind the pace. Keep in mind that a lot of the time with ball comp, you're playing second rather than first. Why Koreans prefer it. That's everything I have on ball comp. If anybody has any questions, they can DM me. Get out now. Thank you. Hopefully this helped a little bit. Stuff that